Hi, I'm Dr. Dan Ratner. One of my goals is to give you all helpful tips and guidelines for how to deal with certain symptoms or psychological experiences we all find so challenging at times. Today we are going to look at how to cope with anxiety. Okay, the first step in dealing with anxiety is to figure out what's going on. A lot of the time you won't know when it first comes, when it first hits you, especially if you're experiencing it in the body, which is often the way anxiety manifests. I did want to make a distinction between anxiety and anxious thoughts. They're actually not the same thing. Sure, anxious thoughts can cause anxiety, but you also can just have anxious thoughts that you're just thinking about and not have it cause you to have the physical response of anxiety. I'm talking mostly about the physical experience of anxiety. Those repetitive thoughts I do have ways of dealing with too, and I'll get to that shortly. But the first thing you do when you're having a bodily experience of anxiety, where something just feels wrong, scary, like you're in danger in some way, it can feel exactly like you were being chased by a Tyrannosaurus Rex. It really can feel that way. And it can be about small things. People have this a lot of the times with conflict. You're having a fight with somebody you care about, and it can feel like the world is about to end. So the thing you want to identify first is the broad themes that apply to why you're having the anxiety. And one thing I want to put a plug in for is it is never an accident. You're never randomly having anxiety. But you hear it all the time. People say, I don't know why. I don't know why I'm having anxiety, but I am. I just feel anxious, jittery, nervous. I promise you it's not an accident. And if you think about what's going on and you think in terms of broad themes, you'll be able to identify it more. So mortality is an example of this. Sometimes you're not even thinking about it, but maybe you almost get into a car accident, but it was just going to be like a fender bender and you weren't really thinking about it and nothing bad came of it. And then 5 minutes later, you're feeling really anxious. Maybe you are thinking about mortality. Self-criticism is another example. When we're going against ourselves, we can make ourselves anxious. The threat of failure or experiencing failure or competition from anybody that we're interacting with, or all the aggression that's out there in the world, or let's face it, in today's society, politics, it can bring up a lot of anxiety. So you want to identify the big picture theme. It's not going to be small things. Very important to identify where it may be coming from. The other thing that you need to recognize is, where is it in your body? This is a question that I love to ask people, and when it's asked of me, it really helps me, because a lot of times you're like, I'm feeling anxious, but where? Sometimes you're feeling a weight in your chest. Sometimes you got a pit in your stomach. Sometimes your head feels foggy. And it's not that the specific symptom is going to reveal so much to you. It's just that it's going to locate you in your body. It's a way of grounding yourself. You are suddenly back to yourself, because what happens in anxiety, a lot of times you're kind of almost outside of your body just thinking about how uncomfortable it is, because you want to be. One of the things I often say, though, is that we have to learn to take our bodies at their words. Whether you are in touch with your anxiety or not isn't actually what matters. See if you can trust your body. If your body's signaling to you that you're anxious, I promise you are. One way to notice this is the difference between shallow and deep breaths. When I had my first job out of graduate school, I was working in a way that required me to work at a pretty feverish pace. And at the end of the day, I had a lot of soreness in my back. This was during my back pain years, but it had gotten worse. And one of the reasons was that I was breathing shallowly. When you're feeling good and you're feeling relaxed, you can breathe deeply. But a lot of times you're breathing shallowly without even realizing it. So these are all signs of anxiety. Now, I mentioned this before. We also need to tease apart anxiety versus thinking obsessionally. Thinking obsessionally can be a way that we're getting away from the central emotion. But anxiety is a whole different animal. And I think true anxiety happens in the body. What do we do with anxiety? The first thing we have to do is we have to challenge the cognitions. One thing I like to say is this a real lion? And the reason I say that is because your body's going to respond in moments of anxiety as if you're being chased by a real lion. Often you're not. When you have to give that speech and you're nervous about it, there's no real lion out there. You're not going to get eaten. So another question that I ask is anything bad actually happening? A lot of times we convince ourselves that there is something bad that's happening, But when I say bad, I mean really bad. Like, is there something objectively really bad that at the end of the day is going to feel like a catastrophic thing or a tragic thing in some way? Now, I'm talking about anxiety, and I want to know from you guys what you want to know about anxiety or what your observations are. So please put your comments below. Click subscribe, hit like, ring the bell for notifications so that you can get more content from me whenever you want it. You'll be able to know when it's coming out. But if you put your comments below, I'll also answer your questions directly. Getting back to the questions that I like to ask myself. We've talked about identifying anxiety. Now we're talking about how to talk ourselves down off the ledge. Another question I ask is, what would be the worst that could happen? Now, I know a lot of people ask these questions of themselves, and they say, well, intellectually, I know the answer, but they nail the problem right there. We have to move beyond intellectual and get to the emotions of it. So when I say what's the worst that can happen, I'm not saying, well, is there a problem with there being, is there a problem with the thing that happens? Will it actually be a big deal? You could intellectually say no, but when you get it down to its essence, maybe it is a big deal. Maybe you would say, yes, I would feel humiliated and I would never be able to face those people again. That's a big threat. So pay attention to the emotional aspect of it, not the rational, intellectual adult side. That brings me to another thing. Here's another question to tease out about anxiety. Does this mirror my childhood in any way? In other words, could these be old feelings? Sometimes we feel old feelings, things that we felt as kids. Humiliation's a great example of this. When you're humiliated as a kid, it feels like you will never be okay again. The little kids we were don't know that it can be safe again. They don't know how to get back to equilibrium. Here's another great question, though. Am I underestimating my own capability? I can tell you the answer to that is almost certainly going to be yes. And it's because we feel that we are little kids or we're being chased by a lion, these big emotional experiences that we're not going to survive. That's not going to make you feel powerful or safe. But if you can ask yourself the question, am I underestimating myself? You're returning to your adult life. You can probably do this. Nothing that bad is going to happen. Now, that's how you talk yourself through it. But I alluded to this before. The key is recognizing what is the actual psychological threat. Are you afraid that you're going to lose somebody important to you? Is it that you're afraid that people will see you the wrong way and you'll never be able to clear it up? What is actually at stake for you? You may want to generate a list. Write this down. What are the various things that actually matter to me? If you guys do have any questions about this, by the way, please leave them in the comments and I will answer. But what I'm laying out for you is the way to think about anxiety. A lot of people think, well, what do I do? And I often want to say, thinking in the right way is a doing. When you start to think in the right way, your whole body will calm down because you're onto the right thing. Now, that includes doubt. I talk a lot about doubt. Is there doubt at play in anxiety? Absolutely. You're doubting whether you're going to be safe. You're doubting whether it's going to be okay ever again. But another thing that I want to add to the picture is that anxiety and anger actually go together a lot of the time, especially when you have a physicalized anxiety. Much of the time, anxiety is signaling that we're feeling something that we don't know about. Often, it's unconscious. Sometimes it's partially conscious. And what I mean by that is you might be having an angry feeling that you're aware of, but you don't know the degree to which you're angry. You're aware of anger, but not at the level that you need to be. That's the most frequent way that I have found this to manifest when I'm angry and it's leading to anxiety. But the nice thing is, if you're really suffering from anxiety and you do let yourself, what I call rage internally, you don't even have to be angry with anyone outside of yourself. You can just be focused on what doesn't feel good in life. What are you angry about? When you turn your attention to that, it's not just a distraction away from anxiety. It's actually getting to the heart of the matter that was bringing the anxiety. So it's important to think about these things in this way. Think about things in the right way. Identify the anxiety, locate it in your body, figure out what is actually at stake. Now, the final step in dealing with anxiety, I guess I shouldn't say the final step because there's really kind of two parts to this, but the basic gist of what to do is you have to adjust something in your relationship with you. I'm going to say this one again because it's very important. Instead of trying to adjust your interaction with the outside world or whatever's happening, you need to open the door to your relationship with you and ask yourself, am I attacking myself? Am I making myself feel unsafe? Am I telling myself there's a lion? Because we do this to ourselves. That is not to say it is your fault. It's nobody's fault that they have anxiety. But we are not taught well in society that we have a choice to go within and find out what's happening with us. Do I feel safe with me? I'll give you a concrete example. If you feel that somebody is not thinking well of you and you think, I'm not going to be able to recover from that, what's really at its core is, would I be able to be okay with me if they walk away thinking badly of me? And the answer is that you can. You can come to feel good with you. So self-talk is a big part of how you get through this. You locate the anxiety, you talk about whether it's actually rational or not, you get to the emotions of it all and what's actually going on, what's actually at stake, and then you talk about what do I need to feel safe. It's very important that I say this though. What you need to feel safe is not what I need to feel safe. What you need to feel safe is not what anybody else needs to feel safe. There may be overlap between people, but the bottom line is what you need is different. Start to think about what you wish could happen to make you feel safer, and then find a way to do that. Another way to bring down anxiety is to recognize your breathing patterns. I made reference to this before. If you're breathing shallowly, that is a sign of anxiety. You can't will yourself to just breathe deeply, but as you start to think about things in the way that I've laid out today, you'll notice your breathing slows down, it gets deeper. Meditation is a way that you can do that as well. I do highly recommend it. It's not something that I do every day, but I wish I would because it's a great practice. And it's something that I'll teach in another video, how I do my meditation. One last thing that can help you with anxiety. A lot of times anxiety happens because we are very overwhelmed. We think we cannot manage things. Well, there's a saying that my mother and aunts and my whole family say all the time. It's going to sound weird, but they say, how do you eat an elephant? Not that you'd want to. One bite at a time. And the reason I say it that way is that if you look at the job of eating an elephant, it's overwhelming. You'll never feel like you can do it. That is what anxiety is like. We look at that job as if we will never be able to do it. But if you do it one step at a time, one bite at a time, okay, let me identify what's the theme. Let me identify where it is in my body. Let me figure out what's at stake. Let me figure out how to self-talk. Let me figure out how to be safe with me. Those are 5 steps that can give you a leg up on anxiety and begin to calm it down. If you want to be notified when new episodes come out, click subscribe, hit like, and ring the bell. To get our newsletter or get the PDFs, head over to crushingdoubt.org. Be on the lookout for links to sign up for our upcoming seminars. I am here to help you resolve your doubts on your journey and find powerful, peaceful, and happy living.